As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be.
Oh man, it's 8 o'clock.
And so that'll make it a.
I don't need the spotlight. I shine just fine.
Hi, I'm Karma, and yes, I am a bitch.
Brav Bros. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brav Bros, your favorite podcast from the bros for everybody, for whoever wants to listen. I am your co-host, Steele Russell, joined as always by the one and only Sad Poppy Goots. What's up, dude?
Seasonal depression is setting in, baby.
It's the most wonderful time. Not really. This is where it starts to get dark early, and I'm glad it's starting to get a little chilly out. I like that vibe. But yeah, it starts to put a damper on the day when you look outside at like 5 and starting to get a little dark. Then right around now, as I sit here in the studio, bro, looking out the windows, and it's just like gray. It's not even dark. It's just gray.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm looking out my back window right now. It looks really dark, but it's mostly just gray. And I feel like it just takes a couple of weeks. What do we have? Daylight savings next weekend? That's when it ends?
I thought they were doing away with that. Was that just like a rumor?
Was that just like bullshit fake news that we didn't realize was fake?
I don't know, but why do you know the whole reason for daylight savings was to save energy and power for farmers and agriculture, but it's no longer applicable. It actually costs more energy. It's less energy efficient to still have daylight savings than it is to get rid of it. But because of tradition, pretty much, we still have it. That's how dumb we are. We've always done this. We'll just keep doing it. Keep depressing everybody and making it so dark that when you wake up, it's dark. And then by the time you get home from work, it's also dark. So your life is one big, dark, chilly mess for the next 5-6 months. What do you say, guys? Good plan? Cool.
Thanks a lot, Ben Franklin.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ben. What a dick. What a moron he was, flying a kite in the lightning. Duh, what a dumbass.
Yeah, good move, idiot.
Yeah, well, we get it. Our whole city's like based around you and William Penn. Like, sick.
What has that done? A couple of championships. Not a lot.
Yeah, Franklin Institute. I'm not going to show the Franklin Institute. The Franklin Institute's dope.
Yeah, I like the Franklin Institute a lot.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about that stuff and stupid-ass Ben Franklin. When's the last time you think Ben Franklin got roasted?
I don't know. Probably not as long ago as you would think, because of his social exploits people bring up all the time.
Yeah, that's true. He's got a wacky social life. If you want to do some digging there's some fun stuff for you. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Ben. We don't want to talk about Ben.
Hey, what we're actually doing is we're going over to Big Ben, where we do have confirmation there is a little Ben in London.
Conflicting results.
OC. Oh.
Yep, conflicting results. We are talking OC, and if you remember last week, our big question was not about Heather. It was not about Tamra. It was not about Ryan. It was, is there a little Ben? And we actually have picture proof from some people that they took a picture of little Ben. I guess it's located elsewhere in London. However, today we got somebody that said, I live in London. There is no little Ben.
I think what's going to happen, we're going to have to get Shoots boots on the ground. I'll be over there in December. I'll check it out, and I will get the answer.
That's what we need. We need to settle this, because I would imagine if you live in Britain, if you're from there, you probably know better, but I want there to be a little bit. So we got Shoots boots on the ground to let us know and answer the big questions, as we always do. We always send Shooter in for any major topic that's going on. We got Shoots boots on the ground here reporting live. But we have too much to discuss to continue ambling. People were actually happy with the amble talk. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I thought we sounded like total morons, but some people liked it. But let's get into our RHOC amble, because there's so much going on this episode. I texted you earlier because I was starting it at like 4:30, 4:40. Whenever I text you, that's when I begun this, because I was like, all right, it's 42 minutes. I'll knock it out. We'll get started at like 5:30, 5:45. I had to pause it and rewind it so many times to make sure I got everything that it took me an extra like 20 minutes. And now we're starting at, I guess, another 40 minutes. We're starting at 6:20.
Yep. How about that?
It was a hell of an episode. And they showed scenes from next week, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I was bummed out. I'm like, oh no, next week is the series. Jesus Christ. Next week is the season finale. And I was like, no, I need more.
It's got to be the first time, and that's what I was talking about yesterday when we were doing our Salt Lake City recap. In the middle of it, I kept being reminded there was so much going on in Salt Lake, and I kept being reminded about how much also happened in OC. And every time I would think about OC, I was weirdly bummed out because of the fact that next week is the season finale. It's bizarre to me. Now, obviously, more than likely, we're going to have 3 reunion episodes, but I want more good content, and it is getting so good right now. And I know next week they're not going to be in London anymore. They're going home, and Alexis is back in the picture. So I might eat my own words, but I want more content with these ladies that isn't reunion centric.
I don't think you're going to eat your words because there is enough there to tie up the Alexis stuff to put a bow on it before the reunion. It's not going to be a damper for me because we've had this long break from it where I'm like, all right, we can check back in with it. I may not enjoy it, but it's not going to bring down my vibe because there's enough going on with the rest of the group. And the rest of the group being Tamra and Heather and this bizarre duo that they've formed whilst in London. I hate this team. I hate what they do. I hate how they hype each other up. I hate how they both spin their narrative. They literally just sit there and go back and forth and create their own narrative without any outside influence. And watching it this episode, I was like, wow, this is crazy to watch these two just go back and forth and pretty much corroborate each other with nothing. They're like, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's what happened. I don't care for it, sir. I don't care for it at all. And team Judge Bro, or let's see, it's Heather and Tamra. Team Tam Bro.
I don't like the bro aspect of that.
That's a good point. You're right. You're right. All right. Relax.
Okay. All right. Your sleeves always, did they just come off? Did you just flex at me and the sleeves came off? What the hell happened?
I shut them in my car door earlier. They just right off. Yeah. No, I don't flex anymore because it rips off my sleeves. So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I know better now. But team Head the Judge. That's the best I got.
Yeah. Do judge.
Team do judge. That sounds fancy. I like that. Team do judge. And now we can start because I would have been stuck there forever and it would have bothered me. So team do judge. But we start out with team do judge and Jen, and it's the aftermath or the end of that argument that we saw last week. And Heather runs out in the hallway like, Jen, no, come back. And their whole approach, Tamra being the leader in this, but Heather is somewhat backing it up. She's like, look, Shannon had a hand in all of this, in everything that's going on. Shannon's part of it too. And I think Jen is so far past it at this point. She's not entertaining this idea. She's not sitting there and listening. She goes to a confessional and goes, get out of Tamra's ass, Heather. Like, knock this shit off. I don't understand what's going on. And she finally has reached a breaking point with Tamra. She's like, look, you don't have a soul. I'm fucking done with you. I'm getting out of here. I don't want to sit here and listen to it. And Jen warns Heather to be careful. And then she bounces.
Yep. And it's weird as shit, too, because Heather in that moment, after all of what Tamra did, and we did see a glimmer of hope in there because Heather did look at Tamra and say, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep clapping at her. Like, don't continue to do this. Just listen to her and let her get it all out. Because we do know that deep down Heather is a little impressed at Jen because she was able to raise her voice and stand up for herself because she said so in her confessional last week. But Tamra sitting there doing that was enough to at least invoke some sort of reaction out of Heather. But Heather's still firmly on Team Tamra because when Jen says, you know what, you just don't have a soul, Heather stands up for Tamra and says, you can't say things like that. Please take that back. Like that's the craziest thing that we've heard on a housewife show. Like, fuck off, Heather. We don't know what you're doing. Does Tamra have some crazy dirt on you that you need to align yourself with Tamra? Tamra is the worst. Why would you want to? You see that she's about to start getting dragged by everyone. Now we know in current times that she is getting dragged to the point where she even went on a live. I don't know if you saw this, but she did a Instagram live.
The fans are so mean to me.
The fans are so mean. We need to, I don't know what we have to do, but we have to change the laws because these comments are out of control. And the good thing is Bravo called me and told me that only represents about 3% of our fans. So don't worry about it. Bravo doesn't have those fucking statistics. Like, were you just making shit up on the spot like you did last week and the week before on your stupid podcast? Yeah, that's what you're doing. So no, that's not how that works. We are giving you shit. The fans collectively, every one of the fans is giving you shit because you're a terrible person. And Jen finally stood up for herself, and Jen deserves to be able to just yell in your face and walk away because it's going to make her feel a little bit better.
Yeah, and the 3% thing definitely pulled out of her ass. I will say that the vast majority of viewers of these shows are not commenting on social media, but regardless, you can't keep throwing shit at people and causing a scene, causing so much turmoil, and not having any concern about people's actual lives when you say all of these things you say, even in this scene. Like, you can't help yourself. At this juncture, you would think, after an entire season of failed attempts at taking Shannon down, taking Jen down, taking Ryan down, trying to point the finger at everybody else in the group, and it's gonna blow back in your face every single time. And immediately when Jen vacates the room, you start to go in on another theory to try to garner some more traction and to point the finger elsewhere. Again, instead of, and Heather says at the end of the episode, all you got to do is just say sorry to Jen. Say, I'm sorry, I fucked this up. If at any point throughout this season, and we saw her try to make nice with Shannon a couple times, we both, I think, not just us, everybody was like, this is bullshit. But if she just simply stopped at any point halfway through the season, we would have, I mean, yeah, we would still talk shit about it, but there would nowhere near be this visceral reaction from the audience.
Yeah.
It's the week to week to week of continued behavior. And then you compound that on top of years and years and years of this behavior, and it becomes unavoidable. We have to discuss it. We're doing our job in discussing it. Other podcasts are doing their job. You know how the Bravo fandom works. If you're going to be on these shows, you know how it goes. A lot of them are really fucking mean. We talk about it all the time. Yeah, but you got to grin and bear that shit. And you have to know, if you're going to approach the game the way that you do, there's going to be a tremendous amount of backlash. And you would think she would learn, but she doesn't, because she brings up this timeshare scam from 2 years ago that they were collecting HOA fees before they even built the buildings. We don't have any evidence on this. This is the first, I've seen stuff coming out because of this episode in the past couple of weeks. Ryan's denied it entirely, but we don't have evidence, and that's my biggest thing. Oh, go ahead.
It's fully irrelevant in this case too, because we saw the text message that you sent to Shannon saying specifically for Ryan that you need to do a background check on Ryan. Now you're showing us, and Bravo is fucking showing us, clips of a text message that you were talking to either Shannon or somebody else saying that you want everybody investigated because you need to know what the hell's going on, because it seems like there's a timeshare thing going on and I needed his business partner investigated and he was just collateral damage. Like, no, there's a text message that specifically says that you want a background check on Ryan. Do not say that he was just party to all of this and you found something out about him because you were looking something else up. Why are you even looking things up in the first place? Like, why are you? There's
she has
curiosity.
nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's curiosity, and then there's just being an absolute lunatic, and that's what she is. She's fucking insane. And this is what happens with Tamra, and we've seen it in the past. She is a terrible person, and we've talked about it before. Her life is reality TV, so she does not know how to behave otherwise, whether or not she's on this show or she's completely off the show. And she talks about it a little bit later with 2022 not being on the show or whatever. You still had a podcast, so your life is still reality TV. Don't get me started on that bullshit. But she is going to do all of this, and when she gets pushed is when her real character comes out, and that's when she's entirely deplorable. She again can't help herself and starts talking about fucking Jen getting a tummy tuck. Like, what the fuck? Like, Tamra goes, or Heather's sitting there, and again, she's somewhat admiring Jen for standing up for herself and even saying that she looked great. And Katie says it in the very next scene, saying, you looked super hot. That's how this is going to work. Tamra steps in and goes, well, yeah, she got a tummy tuck. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Nothing.
You're just throwing fucking stones because you're pushed into a corner. And as this continues, and that's partially why I'm a little upset that we only have one more real episode after this, because we're starting to see Tamra get shoved into a corner. Yes, she has Heather to lean on, but everybody else is starting to realize you're fucked up, Tamra, and people are going to go after her. And we see her true self come out. And I want to see her fully come out, because by the time the reunion comes out, she's going to have time to compose herself a little bit and have some fake ass apology to both Jen and Shannon now, but just add them to the list.
Yeah, try to change her story up a little bit, try to come up with a defense. But when they're showing the texts, in her mind, they're like going to exonerate her. I'm like, this doesn't change really anything for me, because Shannon's saying that she wants to protect herself if this stuff comes out. She doesn't want to be attached to it. you're still the one that's saying, I'm doing this. I'm asking my friend to get a background check on Ryan. Me.
Yep.
Shannon's talking to you about it. And here's the thing. Like, we're well aware that Shannon has been a mess up until this season. We're not denying that. Could she have been involved in some shady behavior? Yeah, totally. I'm not going to sit here and say that she's completely blameless. But the text message that I just read and the goal you had from these text messages did not land. I was like, this changes absolutely nothing for me. And meanwhile, like you just said, this whole group is turning on Tamra. And you would think, because we've seen a very buttoned up Dubrow for a long time when it comes to the nonsense, that she would have a better read on it and not be like, I'm jumping on Tamra's team right now because everyone's ganging up on her. It's so strange. It's so strange. Like, I don't get it. Does she have paparazzi photos?
Yeah.
Of Heather? Like,
yeah, she has clippings and she's got screenshots from text messages between whoever Katie knows.
She's got the smoking
and
gun of the paparazzi issue. Yeah, I don't
that's what
know.
Heather's most afraid of this season, is worrying about that.
The paparazzi. But we got a scene with Shannon and her daughters, and it was actually really nice. They're celebrating their 60th in London, and this is just a fun scene, and it shows you. I like watching stuff like this, the interactions, how the daughters talk to their mom, because it's very comfortable, very real, very friendly. They know about the Tamra stuff. I like that they don't go further than she sucks. So this is a toxic relationship. And then they just go at, like, change the subject. Are you dating anybody? And that whole combo was really funny to me because what did the one daughter say? She goes, I had my fair share.
Yeah.
That's fucking funny. But I like their relationship. And I think that I don't know, that says a lot about Shannon and how she's been this year, in my eyes, right? Because she's had a very strange year, obviously, a very tumultuous year. So watching her daughters just talk to her, I'm like, all right, well, clearly things are okay at home with her and her family and like her immediate family. So that's nice to see. And you can't deny that from watching. I know it's not like a super in-depth scene, but just the way that they respond and talk to her, I think speaks volumes.
No, I fully agree too. And we can usually, obviously, it would be nice if this was the only children talk of the episode, but unfortunately we have to get the kids involved for the rest of the episode.
We're breaking rule number 1 a lot this episode.
The entire fucking episode is about that. But when you get to see, like you said, the dynamic between a mother and her kids, whether it's daughters, sons, whatever, that gets to a point where you get to see the interactions. You get to see how much respect they have for their mother. And we've seen this all season. And anytime that Shannon is talking to any of her daughters, even when they're talking about John Jansen, like, they are firmly on her side and they seem like bright kids. And they're seeing the side of, yeah, he's a fucking dirtbag. But here we have Alexis over here and Tamara over here trying to say that he's a good guy. So no, I'm going to believe these kids because they want to protect their mom. And I believe Shannon because you guys are fucking liars. But seeing all of this is always really nice because it shows that dynamic. And again, we do typically like the family scenes because it breaks things up, especially when an episode like this pops up. And it gives us a little bit of a reprieve and a little bit of a fun scene. And I love it.
We needed it this episode because shit gets heavy very shortly. But you got a scene with Tamra, Heather, and Gina. And they're discussing the Jen stuff. And Gina's like, yeah, I saw the text messages and, this is bad. Like, this is really bad. It looks bad on you, Tamra. And it makes me question my friendship with you. Like, would you do this to me? Would that sting to hear a little bit from anybody? Yeah, probably. But based on your behavior up until this point, can you be surprised that people are now questioning what you may or may not do to them based on your current friendship? Because we've seen you jump loyalties all the time. You're probably chomping at the bit right now because for some weird reason, you've got Heather on your team out of nowhere.
Yep.
But what are you going to do to Heather? Like, I think everybody that gets involved with Tamra, and that's why this episode, especially the end of it, I was actually a little surprised at some of the reactions when it starts coming out, like the Gina and Travis stuff, because how quick people are still able to hear Tamra out. I'm like, guys, you don't see that this is another ploy for her to try to get some kind of support from you? This is the same thing she's done all season, is throw claims out. The fact that people are pretty quick to be like, ooh, I'll hear this. Like, what happened? That was confusing to me. I'm like, this is the same playbook again that we've seen all the time, and yet people are falling for it. So is Gina correct to say, hey, this concerns me? Would you try to do this to me? Lo and behold, in the same episode, she does. So yes, of course she will. She'll do this to anybody. She'll do anything to anyone for clout because, like you said, her life is reality TV. There is no separation between the show and her real life. Whether it's because she has nothing to do in her real life or she just can't simply separate the two, I don't know. Truly, I'm not even trying to take a dig there. I don't know what is going on in her head where it's like, this is me all the time. I'm always playing a character. I'm always being this person, whether it's on my podcast, on TV, at home, doesn't matter. When I took my 1 to whatever year hiatus that she took from the show, she was probably the same.
Yeah, well, she was podcasting, so her life was still like that. Like she
Right.
started
Yeah,
the
yeah.
podcast as soon as she was off the show, so that she could remain in the public eye, and so she could continue to have this behavior. So yeah, no, I do like it. It bothers me all the time, and it goes back to last season that people do not understand Tamara's playbook, and they always look at her and say, "Yeah, I can't see you doing that." But this episode, you can see the tides start to change a little bit with Gina later, with Emily during this episode. Like even in their confessionals, they're starting to question a little bit more, and that makes me a little happier. But in that same breath, they're still going to give her the benefit of the doubt, which is fucking insane. She's
That's my
done
point.
nothing. She has done nothing to earn the benefit of the doubt. You have watched her do this to countless housewives, to countless friends of, to people probably in her personal life because she can't separate her reality TV career from that. So yes, there is no reason for you to not sit there and say, yeah, but would you do this to me? Because she would. Of course she would.
Will.
She would do it to her fucking husband. She'd do it to her children. This is just how she operates. She's crazy.
I agree. But you get Jen and Katie and Emily in the pub. I truly, truly, truly love Jen. I think she is the new era of housewife. I think that's what we're looking for. The honesty and being a nice person, not being afraid to get involved and say some shit and pop off, but at the core, not evil. Like that's, I think, what we need. We need all of the good stuff from the old days, but just less mean, like truly mean people. You can have a couple meanies, but I like the way that she carries herself. I love the fact that they go to a pub in England and she's like, do you have Malibu? And they're like, we do. She's like, Malibu and Diet Coke, because that's my drink, baby, no matter where I'm at. I'm like, fuck yeah, do you.
No, I fully appreciate that. And I do like, I was a little cringed when they were talking about Guinness, because yes, Guinness, it's like Guinness. I don't know how the fuck you don't know that, but whatever. I'll get past it. But no, Jen is just, she's so authentic. Like just little things like that, because I noticed the same thing. I don't mind it. I think it's kind of funny. It's very camp for her to just sit there and be like, yeah, this is my drink. I don't care if I'm in London. I don't care if I'm in Spain. If you have Malibu, Diet Coke, I'm ready to roll. Love that. But I disagree with you slightly. I think that the new era of housewives can take a note from the past. If everybody is mean to each other, then that's okay. If there's a couple of meanies, that's also okay. But there can't be one big bad meanie. We can't have that, because that's going to get old very quickly. And that seems to be what we have in OC. I'm not going to say that Heather's a big bad meanie with Tamra. She's just hitching her wagon to Tamra for some reason. It just gets really tired when it's one villain the entire time and nobody goes back at her. That's what we can't have. But we're starting to see the tide change. I'm all right with that.
I agree. And if you look at like RHOC, for example, you can't point to a villain on the show. People are being messy and doing mean shit to each other, but you can't point and be like, she's the villain. She's the villain. It's like, no, they're all doing shady shit, but they're also all having nice scenes as well. You need both. We need a wow.
Well,
you get it.
Well-rounded. But also, if you look at Roni, there is no villain at all. Nobody's
or authenticity.
Yeah, it's just nothing.
So that's the problem.
Stray. I'm just always gonna stray one out
just
there.
Just Roni strays. But they're talking about the background check and how Jen lost her mind finally, kind of snapped on her. And Emily points out a very important point that they all, again, should take heed of. Like, it's like they don't listen to their own warnings, but she's like, when Tamara doesn't respect somebody, there's no limits. And that's what we've seen time and time again with Jen and other people in the show, past and present. If there's no respect there, she really has no problem going for the jugular, throwing out baseless claims, just saying whatever the fuck she wants to garner a reaction. Then we get a great breakdown of it later from Shannon. I'll save it for later. But Emily, I think, voices what a lot of us have come to terms with this season, where she's like, look, Ryan's stepping up for you, Jen, and for your kids for the time being. He is there. And we have our issues with Ryan, for sure. We have to reiterate that weekly, that, yes, we know that he does come off like a douchebag and he's not our favorite. But if we're going to give credit where credit's due, as we like to do here, even with Tamara, we've given her credit along the way. He has stepped up for her and her family, and you can't knock him for doing that. So I'm glad that Emily's able to at least say, look, at the end of the day, he was there when you needed him. He's there for your kids. There's a lot of respect there, and you can at least give him that much for now. We'll see what comes out with all this shit later.
Emily has come a very long way since episode 1 too. Just
Yeah,
sitting there
right?
talking about Jen's finances, always questioning what she's doing, going to Vegas, doing glam, this and that and whatever. Now she finally realizes, and I do wonder if Ryan wasn't associated with this potentially illegal revenue stream, would they still feel the same way? Would they still be sitting there saying, is it just because he's a douchebag that they'd be sitting there like, oh, well, why is Jen doing all of this? Or if he was a really nice stand-up guy that everybody liked, I don't think that anybody would question it. I think if Jen was going to Vegas all the time and getting her hair done all the time, even though she had just been evicted, but she's moving in with Ryan, if he was this great guy, if he was, say, Matt that Katie's married to, then everybody would be like, oh, this is fine. This is okay. Good for you guys. I hope you guys get married. Like, it would be a completely different turnout. I think it's just because he's a douchebag and because Tamara's been in their ear about what's going on with the FBI that they're questioning everything and they're not giving her the benefit of the doubt. But it's still nice to see Emily finally come around to it. And you've seen the progression all season where she's realized, yeah, I shouldn't be talking about Jen's finances. And now she's saying, this is good. Ryan is a good guy, because now you're seeing what Tamara's doing, tearing him down, and how it's affecting Jen. And you get to step back and say, well, what the fuck, Tamara? Like, leave her alone. There's nothing wrong here.
Well, he got off to a bad start because of the, he was the guy that was trying to bang people's wives at the gym, that whole thing. Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, is that grounds for being skeptical? Absolutely. Yeah. Has he shown signs of being a douchebag? Absolutely. If you want to keep him at an arm's length, by all means do so. We've seen bad dudes on these shows before that have cheated, that have done other things, that have gotten back in the good graces of other people in the cast. So I think that if the FBI thing wasn't in play, I do think Tamara would try to find another angle because she's obsessed with Ryan for some weird reason. I truly think it's because she wants to hook up with him. I think she's attracted to him. I think that's the root of this, because he didn't give her attention at the gym and he gave Jen attention at the gym. I think that is honestly a big part of this. I can't get that out of my head for some reason, but
it's fair.
I do think that because it's the FBI thing, there's this lingering question mark of who is this guy? And I think that until that whole thing shakes out, that will always be there. Yeah. And somewhat understandably so, but it also makes for a very low-hanging fruit for Tamara and anyone else that wants to go after it, because it's like, well, what's going on with the FBI? Like, you can say that every time, and every time it's going to hit a little bit. So I think that he's got a lot of factors against him. And again, we're not rooting for Ryan here. Like, we want the truth to come out and to figure out what the fuck's going on. But at the very least, I think we can all agree, when push came to shove and Jen needed a place to stay, needed money, her kids needed to be taken care of, Ryan didn't hesitate. So you can't knock him for that part. But
that's a good point.
Heather is now talking about the digging. I don't like all the digging. That's why I'm so disgusted with Katie. It's like, what? Like, we're back to this shit now? Like, what are we doing? And
She's
this is clearly...
with Katie. She is obsessed with Katie. Heather is not obsessed with Katie. Heather is obsessed with Katie. Katie is not obsessed with Heather anymore. Katie is moving on. We identified that immediately. It was a bad move. She just wanted to make a name for herself. She thought she had some dirt going into it, and she could immediately make a splash. It failed miserably, and she took a step back, and she's been fine since. And she's aligned herself with Jen, the nicest person on the cast, and Katie is also nice. And they're still friends, and they're very supportive of each other. And we love that. That's great. That's incredible. But now Heather keeps going back to the Katie thing. She wants more dirt because it made the Heather look bad in the beginning of the season, is the only thing that I can think of, that Heather cannot get it out of her head. It is turned completely. Heather's so obsessed with Katie, just let it lie. This is only going to end bad for you if you just do the normal Heather Dubrow thing and act like it doesn't matter and move on with your life. You'd probably be a lot better for it. But if you keep poking, something's going to happen.
Well, that goes to tell you what was transpiring in that room between Tamra and Heather. Because in this scene, it's Tamra, Heather, and Gina. And Heather knows damn well if she extends an olive branch to Gina to try to get her on her team, Gina's going to jump at the chance. She wants to be close to Heather. So she brings up the Katie thing. And of course, Gina immediately is like, oh, I can't believe what a liar Katie is. Like, immediately back on the train. But this is when I was like, okay, this was all a ruse. Tamara and Heather talked about this beforehand, because immediately Tamara's like, oh, yeah, well, and goes into this story about Emily's kids. And she heard through Kaylee at the lunch that Emily's kids were saying, oh, we don't like Heather. Heather's mean to our mom. She's never nice, whatever. And then that spins and it turns into, oh no, Kaylee told Emily's kids that Heather's a bad person.
Sure.
It's like, first of all, this is so clearly planned by you two idiots up in your room. You thought for some reason this was going to be the haymaker that you wanted it to be. It's not, by the way, because now we're discussing taking what an 8-year-old said at face value without questioning where it's coming from, without saying, all right, there's clearly a whisper down the lane here, telephone tag, where it's like, the kids said it to Kate. Oh, wait, no, she said it to the kids. And that, wait, the kids told me. It's like, what are we doing right now? One, you're bringing the kids into it, which is just always a bad idea. This is a bad move by Heather. It's very out of character for Heather. I'm like, what are you doing right now? How is this a good? And I know Tamra's the one that brings it up, but you clearly discussed it. You clearly planned this moment to bring it up in front of Gina to cause more shit. What's going on? Why are you taking this without vetting it at all or having a conversation with Emily that's not, hey, your fucking kids are talking shit, bro. Hey, Katie, you better tell your daughter to shut the fuck up. Like, that's what we're seeing. It's so weird. Like, I couldn't believe that this is the move they're trying to make now.
It's super bizarre, and it's not completely bizarre for Tamra to do that because I expect this of Tamra. It's bizarre that Heather is so involved in all of this.
Yes.
Heather needs to just fucking move on. Like, why do you need to get revenge on Katie for bringing up a topic that you defended all last year? Wouldn't you just want to space yourself away from this? Wouldn't you just want to ignore Katie? That would be way more powerful. Maybe make a couple of digs at her outfits, things like that we typically see on housewife shows. Why are you going this route? And it's all just because Tamra got into her head. Well, I know this about this because I was at a lunch and I heard that Emily's kids are saying that they don't like you very much because you're mean to their mommy. Why the fuck? Like, yes, I do understand Heather hearing that information, being like, well, what the fuck? Like, is Emily just at home trashing me all the time that her 8-year-olds are doing this? But you don't bring it up. You don't talk to her about it on camera. This is not a storyline. We're not throwing 8-year-olds under the bus. We're not throwing what seems like a very intelligent and nice young girl in Kaylee saying that she's telling these 8-year-olds what to fucking think. Like, that makes no sense. The whole storyline is so stupid. It's so ridiculous. And we don't have time for this shit. We just don't. We just don't.
There's too much more going on.
No one in their right mind is going to watch this and say, oh my God, this is such a smoking gun. An 8-year-old. It's like when an 8-year-old walks into a police department and says that like something happens. It's like, whoa, they didn't know the 8-year-old was there. It's like, this isn't like that. This is just not how this fucking works. Like, it's just not.
They're children.
They're fucking children. Leave them alone. Leave them alone.
Leave the kids alone.
Leave the kids alone.
For the love of God, leave the kids alone. But let's keep trucking. And just before we get to etiquette class, we gotta point out Shannon's a little backed up. All right. And this happens, traveling the world. You travel, things slow down sometimes.
It happened last year too. We got some enema talk last season too.
Yeah. Look, everyone needs an enema in London. Okay.
Yep.
That's just par for the course. They actually, if you stay in a nice hotel, they just provide one for you.
I think so.
I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, we get to etiquette class, and it's very fitting that this group sits down to etiquette class, and we're talking poop pills, we're talking constipation.
Yep.
We're at that. I will say this group is good at being authentic in that nature, where it's like, yeah, we're kind of a mess, and we're going to bring the mess to you. They don't change that. I don't want them to change that.
No,
but
definitely not.
But we get to something that, of course, this is going to go well, because anytime we do games of any nature, it always pans out well, especially with this group in particular.
And this was also just a fucking target practice for Heather.
Oh,
this was, I need to figure out a way to organically bring this up. Let me consult my Housewives 101 book. Oh, I just play a game.
We need to play a game.
We're not going to call it peaks and valleys. We're not going to call it, what was the other way that they explained this?
Pit and peak.
Pit and peak. Yeah, I always called it peaks and valleys. Yeah, we're going to do a little pit and peak here.
I did Rose and Thorn.
Yeah, Rose. There you go.
Remember that?
Yeah, we used to do that.
Good old time. The good days.
God. Yeah, those were the good days. But no, let me just try to work this into conversation. We're going to figure this out. And it goes exactly as we figured it would.
Yeah, it does. It starts out, the pit was, as Tamra goes, The pit was Jen yelling at me for something that Shannon provoked.
Uh-huh.
It's like, fuck me. Okay, how's this all Shannon's fault now? Like, let's just do it quickly so we can get to the part where they yell back at you because what the fuck? And Shannon, she tries and has tried time and time again to disengage from this stuff. I don't want to do this. Shut the fuck up. I'm leaving the table. We've seen her try to avoid it because we've also seen her try to talk about it and it falls on deaf ears. So at this point, on the 4th day of her trip, the trip's effectively been ruined for her at this point. You're doing it again. And now you're trying to point the finger at her again. And she says, "Look, you're a liar. You're a liar, Tamra." And Tamra, the mask comes off. This is who Tamra is. This is her actual personality. She just immediately, one, isn't smart enough to come up with a good rebuttal. So just repeats what Shannon said to her. You're a liar and a drunk. It's like, ooh, you got her. Like, we're still doing this. And that's where it, for me, I remember my reactions early on this season when the drunk thing would come up, when she would take digs at alcoholism and people with addiction problems and stuff like that. I remember how like angry I got. And at this point, I'm like, really? Like you did it again? Like I didn't even get upset. I almost laughed. I'm like, you're that desperate now that you're bringing this back up. And she's like, you probably don't remember things because you're such a drunk. And Gina, for fucking like, finally, I've been waiting for this from her all season, finally steps in and goes, hey, can we cool it with the alcohol talk? I'm really sick of it. It's not funny. It's not for you to say what her journey is and tell her what to do. Like, just fucking leave it alone. And for a very brief moment, it looks like Tamra takes it in stride. She kind of nods along and then immediately jumps back off that train. And she's like, why are you even believing Shannon? And Jen's like, she's been more honest with me in 1 year of friendship than you have in our entire friendship. And Tamra's taken aback by it, which I guess that's kind of where my confusion lies. And obviously it deteriorates even further because the Ryan stuff comes back up. But before we get to that, I truly don't understand a person that can have this continued behavior for a very long time. We've got archives of this. All right. And you can blame the early days on that's how Housewives was. It was crazier back then. Okay, fine. How can you still be here now after watching yourself last season, after going through this whole entire season, and not be able to take even an iota of accountability? Like, truly, this isn't rhetorical. If you have any kind of thought on this, because it blows me away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how her brain operates to begin with. I think it's really just that she got along with it, or she got away with it for so long that she just started believing that she never actually has to take accountability.
You're right.
But it started getting even more warped when she started claiming that others need to take accountability.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets fucking hypocritical. That's where it gets insane when you see somebody like Shannon do what she did last year, where she was drunk and she was on the phone and she was bitching about John Jansen and you guys were all giving her shit for it. You just wanted her to take accountability, but you've never taken accountability. So it doesn't make any sense. And it's not how that works. And I don't blame Shannon for not taking accountability when the person who's telling her to take it never takes it herself. So it doesn't make any sense. And that's the only way that I can imagine how Tamra's mind has warped over the years, is that she's got away with it for so long. And we pointed out every fucking episode, at least 15 to 20 times a full season, that she does these terrible things. And everyone knows that it was her. Everybody knows that she's the source of it. And they don't go after her. They never actually try to exact any sort of revenge. There's just nothing to do about it. And she gets away with it. So she starts to gain confidence and continue down this path. And now at this point that she just believes that she's untouchable, it's crazy. To the point where when she is getting called out, she just says more horrendous things. And that's what she believes her power is. That's crazy.
That was actually a very astute breakdown. I think that was kind of on the head.
Unfortunately, I spent way too much time thinking about Tamra Judge's mentality.
Me too, unfortunately. But to your point, immediately, because Jen is standing up for herself, which we love to see. Even Heather loves to see it. It is nice to see that she found her voice and she's confident in it. And she's like, he brings up everything Tamra talks about. Keep talking about Ryan, the lawsuit, the FBI, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you better shut the fuck up. I'm like, fuck yeah, let her know. And she's like, why? He's gonna put a hit out on me? I'm like, there you go.
There you go.
Like the gravity of what you've just said, because he's being quote unquote investigated by the FBI, according to you. He's doing all this like super sketchy shit with like an overseas bookie, according to you. And now you're gonna bring up the fact that he has people killed. I know it seems innocuous. I know it seems like a one-off comment. You're like, oh, he's gonna kill me. You just said that though. Like you genuinely just said that about her partner. This is her spouse. This is who's taking care of her kids back home right now. And you just throw this out there willy-nilly because you're backed into a corner. And then it's crazy because she goes on the defensive and she's like, here we go, gang up on me again. No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to say gang up on me again because you bring this heat on yourself because you're not nice to people. It's very simple. Treat people well. They won't want to throw you under the bus. But you've continuously thrown them under the bus, backed up, thrown it in drive, backed up again over their dead, lifeless bodies. And now their bodies are rising back up and saying, fuck you, we're not doing this shit anymore. And even Heather jumps in and says, dude, you're not helping yourself. And she's like, I'm not going to let her turn everyone in the group against me. And finally, dude, Gina again, and everybody at the table has a reaction. And everyone's like, that's not what's going on here. Nobody's turning anybody against you. They're trying to get you to take responsibility for your side of things, as we've been screaming at you for years now. If you want to be messy, fine. When you get caught, actually be sorry. Don't go on the defensive for 6 episodes and then say sorry and then jump back in and then fast forward to the reunion and it's a full backpedal, followed by a podcast where you say some sketchy shit and backpedal again. We know your playbook. It's the same every time. At least be original with this shit, because now we can spot it from a mile away and you're doing it again. You're doing it again. And now the whole group for the first time ever is saying, time out, Tamra. We're not doing this shit. And Jen says, you know what? I'm good. She goes, oh, we're good. It's like, no, we're not good. I'm good. You can go fuck yourself. Like, of course, we're not cool. I'm done with this shit. The fact that Jen gave her another shot in the beginning of this season, you and I talked about episode 1. We're like, what are you doing? You just saw what she's capable of. And this is what Tamra was so good at, was reeling people back in. But to see, and you know what? Looking back now, I'm okay with it. I'm okay, because had we not had that reunion of these two at the beginning, we wouldn't have the massive season that Jen's had, this coming of age, if you will, of a housewife, where she's finally figured out how she wants to operate. She's found her voice. She's found her confidence. She's able to go up against one of the biggest bullies in the history of Bravo and not only hold her own, but actually defeat her. She's making Tamra look just silly at this point, and I'm here for it. And that wouldn't be possible without this reunion at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and I know that we had our theories in the beginning of the season about why Jen was letting Tamra back into her life. Was it just to keep her close so that she couldn't go after her? No, I genuinely believe that Jen is a very, very nice human being that's going to give people multiple chances. You know what? You fucked me over, but I'm going to give you another shot. And like you said, we wouldn't have had this. We wouldn't have had Jen finding her voice. We wouldn't have had Jen rising to the occasion and actually shutting somebody down who was being mean to her, who was trying to ruin her entire life. And that's pretty much what Tamra was doing. And I remember audibly laughing when I'm watching this episode when Tamra says, oh, now everybody's going to gang up on me. We're not doing that. How many times have you been the leader with the pitchfork? Pretty much every fight that we've ever seen.
You just were 5 minutes ago.
I know. You concocted this whole plan where you're going to start talking to Gina about what's going on with Emily's kids, and you're going to start talking to Heather and plant some ideas in her head so that we can get started during this etiquette dinner, which is fucking hilarious.
It's so on point for this group, though.
Oh, it's perfect. And I would never change that in a heartbeat. I would always leave it the same. But sitting here, you have tried to manipulate the situation so that then other people might go after Jen. Other people might go after Shannon. And then the deflection is off of you because you realize that Jen has you. Jen has you on the hook. And in the past, you've watched Jen cower in fear when you raise your voice, when you start threatening things, when you look at other people and people will, for whatever reason, get behind you. Jen was usually afraid of that. So you thought that you could turn the tables again, and you didn't. And your immediate deflection is, so everybody stop ganging up on me. This isn't right.
You don't get to do that now.
Do it? Then why do you do it, Tamra? If it's not right, when you do it, then it's not right then. So it's just fucking insane to me. And I just love that Jen has finally found her voice. But not only that, again, you see Gina with some very good point outs. Enough of the alcohol stuff. I don't understand what the fuck's going on here. We're not doing this. We're not going after you. We're just trying to get you to realize that you're fucking up. That's all we're trying to do here. And if you take accountability, it can all be over. Like
It
you
could
could
be over
just
then.
swallow the pill. Just literally sit there and swallow the pill and say, you know what, guys, I've been sloppy. I'm sorry. Jen, I shouldn't have gone after you. I shouldn't have done anything with Ryan. I apologize. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt from now on. And you know what? You know what could have easily happened, Tamra? If you sat there in London and said, I'm sorry, I won't bother with Ryan anymore. I shouldn't have done it in the first place. There's nothing to worry about. And then this stuff starts to happen. You get the biggest I told you so moment. But now that all of this has happened, you don't get to sit at the reunion and say, I told you so, because you've already done deplorable shit and nobody's on your side.
Exactly. Just put the fries in the bag, ma'am. Just put the fries in the bag. Let's move on. Like, fuck.